No, this snail isn't ready to rave. It couldn't be further from the truth. It has been turned into a zombie by a mind-controlling parasite. And there's no other way to put this, it's pulsating inside the tentacles of the unfortunate snail. This is the green-banded brood sac. The larvae will feed on the insides of the snail straight through their skin. Eventually, it transforms into large sacs called sporocysts and moves to the snail's eye stalks. And this is where the disco-raving zombification takes place. When infected, they're up to 3 times more active than usual. They're kind of like possessed zombies on steroids. Combine that with the pulsating green display, and they look more like big, irresistible caterpillars for hungry birds, which swoop in and get their meal. Inside the bird, the parasite begins to grow in the rectum of its avian host. Yeah, whatever you want to call home, I guess. But this parasite has one last trick up its sleeve. Green-branded brood sacs are hermaphroditic, meaning they have both male and female reproductive organs, making reproduction a whole lot easier. The fertilized eggs are released with the bird's poop for an unsuspecting snail to eat, and this amazing life cycle starts all over again. While the brood sac can control the snail's behavior, it's unknown exactly how it does it. Theories suggest it's probably using chemicals to do so. It seems to influence it to go out in the open, which goes against their usual behavior. They venture out so they can be easily spotted by a bird. But all is not lost for the slimy host. The birds who are attracted to the zombie snack only go for it because the parasite makes them look like caterpillars. So some birds don't even eat them whole. They just bite off the eye stalks and fly on. It may sound awful, but luckily, it can regenerate everything it loses, which is great for the snail. They get to live another day until they stumble across fresh bird droppings with more green-branded brood sac eggs in them. They're known as silent destroyers. But they also hide a creepy trait when one of their kind is dying. We're talking about termites in this episode. How can a termite queen lay millions of eggs? How do termites cause billions of dollars in damage every year? And why do the colonies lick their queens to death? Termites are ancient. Their fossils date back about 130 million years to the early Cretaceous period. They can be found on 6 of the 7 continents on Earth, but they prefer warmer, damper environments. Living in colonies with populations ranging from a few hundred up to the millions. In 2018, a 4,000-year-old supercomplex was discovered in Brazil with approximately 200 million excavated mounds covering an area the size of Great Britain. So it begs the question, how do these colonies get so big? Well, it all comes down to the queen. She's the founding member of a colony. Once she mates, she heads underground to start her life of perpetual egg-laying. And it really is her lifelong job now. She'll continuously lay up to 30,000 eggs per day for 15 years. She's tired. That's 1 every 3 seconds. See, we weren't kidding. To produce that amount of eggs, she needs to be bigger than the rest of the termites in the colony. Starting off as small as a dime, she can grow up to 11 centimeters long. Although this size does come with its share of problems. She's so big and so inundated with eggs that she can't move. So she has a team of workers tending to her every need. This includes licking her body to keep her clean. It gives a whole new meaning to housekeeping. After laying around 250 million eggs and being fawned upon continuously the entire time, her life comes to an end. And the workers aren't done yet. They will start licking her more aggressively, not to clean her, but to devour her. This cannibalistic trait is not fully understood, but there's probably good reason for the workers to do it. Probably didn't get any overtime. Termite colonies are giant nutrient recycling machines. It's no wonder they don't let the queen's body decay away. As part of the process, the fluids and fats are unceremoniously absorbed out of her body. Some research suggests that since a termite's usual diet is low in nitrogen, eating the queen or their fellow workers could be a good way to get nitrogen back into the colony. Speaking of food, termite colonies can get seriously huge. So what do they eat to keep everything running smoothly? If you've had any experience with termites invading your home, you might have the answer to this one. Their food of choice is wood. They can be extremely destructive when they feed on wooden structures and vegetable matter. Even worse is that introduced species are less comfortable in their new surroundings and are more likely to shelter in our homes and buildings. This leads to greater damage to structures and more frustration for property owners. That damage comes with a $5 billion bill every year in the United States alone. That's a lot of houses and a lot of wood. Wood doesn't seem the most nutritious diet, but it's chock full of cellulose, a complex carbohydrate made up of sugar. Termites have special microbes in their gut that help them break it down and turn it into food. And what's surprising is that termites are not born with these microbes. They have to acquire them from others in the colony. And here's the gross part. The microbes can be passed on by anal feeding. Yep, you guessed it, eating the poo of other termites. Wonderful. There's no way a Venus flytrap can catch this quick little wasp. Or is there? Oh, be careful, don't get too close, don't touch the… Oh, boy. Yep, well, there it is. The Venus flytrap has long been the stuff of sci-fi lore. It's green, it's toothy, and it's carnivorous. It looks like an anglerfish in plant form, and luckily for you, it doesn't eat humans, who aren't on Broadway. The Venus flytrap has a refined palate. Well, it's refined for a carnivorous plant. So what kind of creatures does it eat? How does it eat them? And why is this plant carnivorous? In 1875, Charles Darwin wrote that the Venus flytrap is one of the most wonderful plants in the world. This isn't an average plant. Its exterior is a vivid parakeet green, and its inside leaves are a deep blood red, like a tongue. But what's really crazy about these plants is the way they eat. Each trap is 2 hinged leaves that produce sweet nectar to attract bugs. You probably think that's pretty standard for a plant. But around each leaf is a series of small, tooth-like bristles that interlock when the hinge snaps shut. When something juicier is on the menu, like a slug, the hairs will bend multiple times, causing the mouth-like leaves to snap shut in less than a second. This keeps the prey and digestive juices inside while keeping harmful bacteria out. However, if the trap mistakenly closes on a pebble or leaf, it will reopen in about 12 hours to spit it out. The plant's movement in response to being touched is called… An average-sized Venus flytrap's favorite foods are ants, beetles, grasshoppers, spiders, flying insects, and slugs. But larger Venus flytraps have eaten frogs. I guess humans aren't the only ones who think frog legs are a delicacy. After catching its prey, as the trap squeezes tightly around its meal, glands located on the surface of the leaves begin secreting a red sap that helps break down the insect's body. This gives the entire leaf a red, flower-like appearance. The trap also secretes an antiseptic juice that stops the insect from decaying and digestive enzymes like the ones in our stomachs. The leaves reabsorb the digestive fluids, the trap reopens, and the insect's exoskeleton is usually washed away by rain or blown away by the wind. The reason these chomping plants are carnivorous is due to the soil. Venus flytraps eat insects to get nitrogen and phosphorus that the soil lacks. And despite rumors circulating on the internet, Venus flytraps do not like hamburger meat. It gives them indigestion and sometimes kills the plants. So if you have one, stick to feeding it bugs or bug burgers. While the Venus flytrap is no Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, it's still pretty sci-fi as far as plants go. And unfortunately, these remarkable plants are now a vulnerable species due to over-harvesting, habitat loss, and lack of sunlight. So if you see a Venus flytrap in the wild, it's okay to admire it, but it's best to leave it be. Insects have to deal with the harsh reality that at any given time, they could be consumed by a predator, like toads and frogs, in the blink of an eye. They can be easy prey. Forgive me for stating the obvious, but once eaten, this is where their story usually ends. Except if you're a bombardier or water beetle. These two bugs have a remarkable yet not so glorious way to survive: being vomited or crawling out of their predator's butt.
You're nasty.
How do they survive in a frog's digestive tract? How long do water beetles take to escape from a frog's butt? How do bombardier beetles make their predator vomit them up? Let's find out why the survival of the fittest isn't exactly pretty. There are an estimated 2,000 species of water beetles around the world. They are omnivorous that eat algae, small fish, and decaying matter. Females lay their eggs in water vegetation. The larvae are called water tigers because they have middle-aged dads who call their kids tiger. Oh wait, no, that's not right. Because they are fierce hunters who can eat small water animals bigger than they are. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. Tadpoles tend to be one of the main dishes for water tigers, and considering frogs are a water beetle's most common predator, it seems like a fair trade. The old circle of life. Frogs rarely kill their prey before swallowing them whole, meaning their digestive tract is much more active in killing them. For the water beetle, 90% make it out alive, the only way they know how: through the end zone. Their hard exoskeleton may allow for added protection against harsh digestive juices. These beetles use their legs to swim actively and help them escape. Their hind legs have a fringe of sorts that helps give them an added boost when swimming. Researchers found live beetles were excreted quicker than dead beetles. They determined that the beetles must use their legs and streamlined shape to move through the digestive tract. Water beetles are always excreted head first, which suggests they stimulate the hind gut and urge the frog to poop. The minimum time it takes the beetles to get out is 6 minutes. Most make it out within a 6-hour time frame. Bombardier beetles can also survive after being swallowed. However, they like to come out of a different end of the predator: its mouth. This isn't as simple as just crawling out like a water beetle. This beetle can shoot boiling chemicals that trigger the predator to vomit it up. A chamber in its abdomen creates the toxic brew only when needed. The chemicals react and form hydrogen peroxide, benzoquinones, and a lot of pressure. It shoots the chemicals with massive force, causing damage to the skin and lungs. Most bombardier beetles can get predators like frogs to spit them out before ever being swallowed. Toads have been studied swallowing these bugs and then throwing them up 45 minutes later perfectly fine. Researchers have found that 43% of the beetles that sprayed chemicals were vomited between 12 to 107 minutes later.
I think I'm going to be sick.
It's clear that the bombardier beetle's chemical squirting ability helps them survive. But scientists are still puzzled why they have it in the first place. Bombardier beetles are hardier compared to other species exposed to a predator's strong stomach acids. Biologists think they evolved their chemical defense strictly for the ability to endure a toad's digestive system. Others have pointed out that for bombardier beetles, a flight escape isn't instantaneous, so it buys them time to get revved up. What could be the most brutal way for an insect to die? Being thwacked by a human? Snatched by a slimy reptilian tongue? How about having your brain overrun by a deadly parasite while being eaten alive? It's probably that one. This is the cordyceps fungus, and it survives by turning insects into zombies. Not that kind of zombie, but it's pretty rough, not gonna lie to you. Animal zombies don't eat their family and friends. They lose control over their bodies and behavior when infected by parasitic fungi called cordyceps. Over 400 varieties of cordyceps infect as many as 10 different insect groups. Some specialize in one kind of insect, like carpenter ants. Others aren't quite that picky. All the cordyceps wants is a safe place to raise its kids. It reproduces by dispersing spores in the air. These spores enter the bodies of its unsuspecting host by clinging to their exoskeletons. Over the next 4 to 5 days, the fungus spores grow by feeding on its host's organs. But the insect's behavior shows no sign of pain. It gets increasingly hyperactive, hypersexual, or zombie-like. Eventually, it'll be triggered to head to a more humid microclimate that's better suited to the development of the fungus. You'd think cordyceps control the minds of these insects by infecting the brain cells, but that's not the case. Instead, the spores hack the nervous system using bioactive compounds. This allows it to release dopamine to reward specific behaviors.
That's a good boy.
Other cordyceps spores work by altering an insect's DNA. This doesn't sound like an alien invasion, I don't know what does. An infected ant feels compelled to climb a high branch and bite into a leaf or stem with all its strength. The growing fungus spores eat up the last of the ant's internal organs as it stays in place, anchored by its bite. This vantage point offers optimum light and humidity for the cordyceps to mature over the next 3 weeks. The ant eventually dies and the fungus blooms out of its head. Guess I know what I'm going to be for next Halloween. Cordyceps fungus. It's now ready to disperse more spores that latch onto other ants passing by. The cordyceps fungus can easily wipe out entire ant colonies. But many ants can be seen licking the spores off themselves. They know what the fungus is capable of. They also drive infected members of the colony away to protect the majority. Body snatching is not all that uncommon in the animal kingdom. Another parasitic fungus, Massapora, likes to infect periodical cicadas. These cicadas spend the first 13 to 17 years of their lives underground. In their final weeks, they surface to find a mate. The Massapora hijacks their bodies and starts feeding on their organs. Soon, their rear half falls off and is replaced by the fungus itself. It pumps cicada full of hallucinogenics, like amphetamine and psilocybin.
It is a magic mushroom omelette, isn't it?
Yep, that's the same stuff found in magic mushrooms. We'll never know how many double rainbows the now frisky and energetic cicada sees, but we do know that the chemicals help repress the pain. As it flies around behaving badly, spores rain out of its rear end, infecting more cicadas. Sure enough, some people have thought of eating these cicadas. That is a terrible idea. The potential for a mind-altering experience requires you to ingest dozens of them, and the cicadas might also be full of mercury from their time underground, or cause allergic reactions. The only trip on offer here is one to the hospital.
I'm freaking out, man.
On the other hand, eating cordyceps might improve the health of your kidneys and immune system. Ironic. Their use is common in Chinese medicine, and you can even buy them as supplements. The world is full of scary and nightmarish creatures. Some are horrifying, but others might not be as bad as we think. Enter the Karoo fish. With nicknames like the penis fish and vampire fish, stories of this mysterious river dweller have surfaced since the 19th century. So are they really attracted to urine? And are the stories about Karoo true? We're going to separate Karoo facts from the myths. For 2 centuries, stories have come from the Amazon about a fish that can swim up your urethra. Lovely. But how true are these stories? And is the Karoo as scary as we've been told? The Karoo is a type of parasitic catfish that grows about 2.5 centimeters long. It has evolved, specialized outward-facing teeth to hook onto the gills of unsuspecting fish. These teeth are also perfectly made to make sure the incision does not harm fish gills, and they allow Karoo to feed on their prey's blood. These unusual adaptations have sparked the stories we've heard about the Karoo. The first account of the startling way Karoo supposedly feeds on humans was in 1829 and came from German biologist C.F.P. von Martius. An Amazon tribe told him they wore coconuts to protect themselves near water or when in the water. In 1855, fishermen warned a French naturalist not to urinate in the river or fish would swim into his urethra. And in 1997, a Brazilian urologist claimed he treated a young man who had problems urinating and bled from his urethra. Examinations and scans revealed a Karoo in his urethra. The urologist had to surgically remove it. The doctor suggested the Karoo could be attracted to a chemical in the man's urine. And the legend of the blood-sucking fish that swims up urethras continues. But don't cancel your Amazon River cruise yet. In 2001, a study found that the fish did not respond to chemicals in human urine, which suggests the stories and warnings lack any substantial evidence. It's possible Karoo could enter the urethra by mistake. Also, such cases are not common, although millions of tourists visit the Amazon River and the surrounding countries where Karoo live. But in the unlikely event that you do find a Karoo in your you-know-where, how dangerous could it be? Well, it could be excruciatingly painful. You could lose blood from the fish feeding on you, and the wound would not get treated right away. Don't forget, the Karoo is a small fish. After eating, it will have consumed about 37 milliliters of your blood in about 30 to 145 seconds. And even though it's been nicknamed the vampire fish, it doesn't suck its host's blood. Instead, Karoo let their host's natural blood pressure fill them up. It's lazy, but clever. We hope this has cleared up some myths about the Karoo, and that you're still looking forward to a holiday in South America.
If you came across this intricately designed circle while diving in the ocean, what would you think? It must be human-made, right? When Japanese divers discovered these in 1995, their minds went rampant with possibilities. Some even suggested that maybe aliens were involved. But the speculation came to an end when they finally caught the culprit in the act: the white-spotted pufferfish. The male pufferfish is a true artist, nature's greatest if you will, and his preferred medium is sand. His circular masterpieces are about 2 meters wide and can take up to 10 days to construct. Carefully positioned geometric rows of sandy sediment ridges are carved out and decorated with small shells and coral. So what's the point of it all? How does a fish so small create such large displays? And how are these circles able to decorate themselves? What do you think the artist's intention was behind this piece? If you said a nest, then you'd be right. Every mating season, male pufferfish get to work constructing these carefully designed circular nests to attract mates. They swim back and forth using their pectoral, anal, and tail fins to disrupt the sediment and create ornate patterns. When the circles are all finished, females show up to inspect them. If the art really speaks to them and they like what they see, then they'll reproduce with the males. The center of the circle features a specially decorated region meant for a female to lay her eggs in. Once the eggs are laid, the female takes off while the male goes about fertilizing them. He guards the eggs until they hatch and then abandons the nest, leaving it to be swept up by the current. The pufferfish isn't the only artist in the animal kingdom. Other species, such as the bowerbird, are known to create extravagant displays to attract mates. But what sets the pufferfish apart is that on top of being expressive artists, they're also engineers. These magnificent circles are pretty much designed to decorate themselves. You won't see the pufferfish picking up little piles of sediment and distributing them on his own. Instead, he designs the circle to funnel water and fine sediment towards the center, and then to filter the water outwards through the circle's peak and valley system. That same system protects the laid eggs by slowing down the water current in the center by up to 25%. So not only are these formations beautiful, they're also functional. But scientists believe that at the end of the day, it's probably size that matters most. Sorry, guys. The idea is that if a small fish makes such a large formation, there's probably a biological reason for the size. Because of the poor visibility deep in the ocean and the distance between individuals, males have to make large nests in order for them to be found by females. But beyond just being able to find the things, we don't really know what else goes into a female's decision to breed with a particular male. Could they simply be impressed with his artistic flair? Well, because the whole circle is designed to collect sediment, researchers say there's no evidence that females care about anything more than the fine sand in the middle. So, while we may not completely understand their rituals, these fish show us that when looking for love, sometimes you've got to be creative.
What is in this fish's mouth? Well, it's as bad as you think. This is a tongue-eating louse. But there are things that these creepy crawlies do that make them even worse than their name suggests. Stick around to find out. Let's clear something up first. This is technically an isopod that belongs to the crustacean class of animals. It has more in common with shrimp and crabs than it does with head lice. But it does in fact eat the tongue of its fish host. It all starts when a juvenile louse senses its potential host and swims up the gills of the unsuspecting fish. From there, it travels to the mouth and checks to make sure no other louse is occupying it. Then it takes up residence by hooking onto the tongue with its legs. Last but not least, it cuts the tongue and starts feeding on the blood and mucus. Lovely. Over time, the fish's tongue begins to die due to lack of blood, and the louse takes its place. The thing is, being a parasite, the louse needs a host to survive. Even though this seems gruesome and bad for the fish, it doesn't suffer much, and the two animals can live for years together. Which kinda makes sense if you think about it. The parasitic louse wouldn't want to harm the fish, otherwise it wouldn't have anywhere to live. I sense a Disney movie in our future. There's a lack of scientific research into whether the louse actually functions as the tongue, but it's been suggested the fish still uses the louse like it would its old tongue. This includes knocking it against the roof of its mouth to help push down food. The population of this parasite is unknown, since it can also live inside other animals. Who knows how many are just floating in the ocean looking for their new living home? But if you do, for whatever reason, want to find one, look about 2 meters deep in the waters of the Atlantic or Pacific Oceans. If you're feeling bold, they can also be found down to depths of 60 meters. If you thought that the tongue and mucus eating was intriguing, oh boy, we haven't even started yet. The tongue-eating louse's mating ritual is where things truly get interesting. They are protandric hermaphrodites, meaning they all start off as males, but when it's time to reproduce, they can turn into females. If a male larva starts to occupy a fish's mouth, it will begin to change into a female and grow significantly bigger. This is also the time a female louse will send signals to other males to not make the gender switch. After hatching, the offspring flow out of the fish's mouth and start the cycle all over again. Damn nature, you are scary and weird. That's why I love you. Now, I know what's on your mind. Could you end up ordering the fish special and get an extra crustacean on the side? Or rather, in the mouth? Take this case in Puerto Rico, where a customer sued a grocery chain after becoming sick when they ate a fish infected with the parasite. And in 2013, a man from Belfast got a nasty surprise when he bought a fish with the parasite still inside its mouth. Female red crabs can lay up to 100,000 eggs at once. Red crabs are native to Australia's Christmas Island. After the first rainfall of the wet season, millions of them flock from their homes in the rainforest to the shoreline. Red crabs always spawn before dawn. They wait for a receding high tide during the last quarter of the moon. When the moon reaches its last quarter, they gather on the shoreline and release their thousands of eggs into the sea. Oh, they grow up so fast. Number 6. Japanese spider crabs can live to 100 years old. These geriatric giants live on the sea floor along the Pacific coast of Japan. They're the biggest crab in the world. They can have legs 4 meters long and weigh up to 20 kilograms. Their size could account for their long lifespan. And I'm sure Japanese spider crabs are wise beyond their years. Number 5. Crabs can amputate their own limbs. That might sound masochistic, but it's actually a method of self-defense. When a crab is attacked, they have a reflexive response to injury called autotomy. The injured limb separates from the body, allowing the crab a quick getaway from the predator. Luckily, the severed limbs can regenerate. Now that's what I call self-growth. Number 4. Crabs can experience pain. In a 2009 study, researchers from Queen's University in Belfast made a shocking discovery. Hermit crabs who received electric shocks to their shells quickly packed up and moved to a new shell. They were also found to rub the spot that was shocked, suggesting they remembered and continued to feel the pain. Ouch. Number 3. Crabs are born transparent. When baby crabs hatch in the water, they emerge as zoea. These transparent larvae only have a dorsal spine and a pair of large eyes. The time spent in the larval stage varies from a few weeks to over a year, depending on the species. For terrestrial crabs, larval life tends to be shorter, but the Dungeness crab, native to Alaska, spends its whole first year on Earth as a little larva. Number 2. Pea crabs could be an unwanted dinner guest. Next time you're at a fancy restaurant cracking open an oyster, you might want to check for this little guy. Pea crabs live in the mouth of bivalve mollusks like oysters. They feed off the oxygen, plankton, and mucus from their host. Ah, home sweet home. But these crabs wreak havoc on the shellfish industry. Mussels that host pea crabs have to be tossed out, resulting in the loss of billions of dollars. Number 1. Horseshoe crabs are instrumental to vaccine development. Despite their name, horseshoe crabs aren't technically crabs, or even crustaceans for that matter. Their closest relatives are spiders and other arachnids. But considering their importance in the medical world and the fact we're running out of them, we think they deserve the spotlight. The horseshoe crab's milky blue blood is the only natural source of limulus amoebocyte lysate. This substance detects a contaminant called endotoxin. If even a trace amount of endotoxin is found in vaccines or other sterile pharmaceuticals, it can be deadly. Every year, 500,000 Atlantic horseshoe crabs are rounded up, bled, and returned to the ocean. Many of the crabs die after this, and with an already dwindling population, it might be best to leave horseshoe crabs alone. Though this creepy doll head looks like it's possessed by a poltergeist, it's not. The reality is much more sad, because this discarded doll head is inhabited by a hermit crab. It's no secret that plastics are harming the world's oceans and marine life. One of the many creatures affected by trash pollution is the hermit crab. These creatures spend much of their lives finding and replacing their shells as they grow. Unfortunately, a lack of shells and an abundance of garbage on beaches and in oceans has led hermit crabs to resort to our discarded plastics as their new homes. Why do hermit crabs need to change their shells? How does plastic waste affect hermit crabs? And can these trashy homes kill them? Surprisingly, hermit crabs are not crabs. Though they are crustaceans, they're most closely related to lobsters. There are over 800 species of hermit crab. 3 of the most common are the Caribbean, the Ecuadorian, and the strawberry hermit crab. Hermit crabs are either land dwellers or sea dwellers, and they come in an array of shapes and colors. But they are all omnivorous, and their exoskeletons do not cover their entire bodies. While a hard outer shell protects the head and thorax, the abdomen is uncovered. So the resourceful hermit crab decided long ago to move into the discarded shells of other sea creatures. By nestling into, say, a discarded sea snail shell, a hermit crab finds a cozy new home, and it protects its vulnerable abdomen from predators like cuttlefish, sea stars, and gulls. Just like people, hermit crabs value their houses, leaving them only when it's time to mate or to find a new home. That's pretty accurate. A young hermit crab's abdomen molds into the shape of the first shell it inhabits. As it continues to grow, the crustacean molds its front exoskeleton and looks for a new dwelling. This usually happens when its current shell feels too tight. Kind of how I feel in my jeans after eating a big plate of crab cakes. Spaghetti. But they don't move into any old shell. They are picky, discerning house hunters that carefully inspect each prospective home. First, a hermit crab will examine the shell for any cracks or openings. Next, it'll roll the shell around to make sure it's light enough to carry and ensure that it's uninhabited. Hermit crabs don't want roommates. Finally, and most importantly, the hermit crab checks the size of the shell's entrance. If it's too narrow, the crab may become stuck or unable to make a quick escape if needed. They're also social creatures, hanging out in crews of up to 100. Because finding that perfect home is the goal of every hermit crab, they will even help each other find better homes. Aww. Sometimes they'll form a line behind a newly abandoned shell, with the biggest hermits getting first dibs. The only species of hermit crab that doesn't need an external shell is the gargantuan coconut crab. Measuring in at over 91 centimeters when fully grown, they outgrow their shells when they're young and eventually develop a hard exoskeleton covering their abdomens. Most hermit crabs have many predators, but like most creatures, their biggest threat is humans. We put over 7 million tons of plastic waste into our oceans every year. Scientists at the University of Tasmania discovered that over 569,000 hermit crabs died on plastic-riddled beaches in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Hermit crabs often get trapped in discarded plastics, and the chemicals in plastics leach into water and food sources. These chemicals accumulate in the hermit crabs' bodies, which can cause health problems and even kill them. Recent research shows that oleamide, a chemical that leaks from plastics, resembles a hermit crab mating pheromone. The chemical scent lures hermits, sometimes to their deaths. And climate change has made oceans more acidic because of the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. More acidic waters leach calcium from snail shells, making them brittle. This means there are fewer suitable shells for hermits to live in, leaving them exposed to predators. It also doesn't help that these crustaceans are popular in the pet trade. Most specialists believe that having a hermit crab as a pet is doing more harm than good. Hermit crabs need a warm and humid environment, and they prefer a diverse habitat with plenty of hiding spots and empty shells, which can be hard to provide. Molting requires deep sand or mud to burrow in, and because they're such social creatures, having a solitary hermit crab will shorten its lifespan. So as cute as that hermit crab at the pet store may be, don't keep one as a pet. These unique critters deserve better than that. We all know what a goose looks like. At least, I hope we do. But there is more to this honking, flapping waterfowl than meets the eye. And you're not gonna like it. Geese are known for their long, slender necks, humped bills, and their noisy way of communicating. They're also known for their territorial and aggressive behavior, especially when protecting their young. But they're less known for their serrated tongues and beaks. So why do geese have these barbs? Are they teeth? And how dangerous is it if you get bitten? Most geese species have evolved and adapted over millions of years to live near freshwater rivers, lakes, ponds, and streams of Europe, Asia, and North America. They prefer temperate or Arctic climates, except the Hawaiian species that enjoys a more tropical climate. I can relate to that. While these honkers are omnivorous, their diet consists mostly of grass, seeds, and berries. But insects and fish are sometimes on the menu too. So why do these mostly vegetarian birds need teeth on their tongues? Well, these little teeth, called tomia, are not made out of enamel, but cartilage. Like teeth, geese use tomia for eating. But tomia are razor sharp and designed to rip through grass, aquatic vegetation, and small fish. In addition to having terrifying serrated tongues and beaks, geese are famously ornery. Spring is the breeding season for the Canada goose, which mates for life. During this time, the waterfowls can become aggressive if they think their eggs or goslings are in danger. Most human-goose conflicts result in minor or no injuries, but being chased by a creature with a barbed tongue and beak is no joke. That's what I call foul play. Some goose attacks have caused broken bones and head trauma. But don't blame the bird, as most of these types of injuries occur from people falling while trying to avoid a goose attack. If you let it get too close, a goose could definitely do some damage to you. If its tomia can tear through fibrous plants with ease, imagine what it could do to your skin. But on the bright side, there are no documented cases of a fatal goose attack. Yet. So unless you want to be the first, it's probably best if you don't mess with geese, especially during springtime. While these angry birds may seem scary with their barbed tongues and aggressive attitudes, just remember that you'd probably be like that too if you were protecting a loved one. You're looking at one of the deadliest snakes on the planet. The saw-scaled viper is responsible for an estimated 5,000 deaths per year. Equipped with one of the fastest bites, it has a unique way of warning before it strikes. Listen to this. Yeah, now would be a good time to get out of there, and fast. There are 12 species of saw-scaled vipers found in dry savannas across Africa, Arabia, and southwestern Asia. They've developed a sidewinding movement to efficiently glide across loose, shifting sand and other surfaces with little traction. This helps add to their speed and unpredictability while hunting or getting away. It's more of a hopping movement rather than a typical slithering. They're also opportunistic eaters, meaning they'll eat just about anything. Rodents, insects, and lizards are amongst the critters on their vast menu. It would be a big mistake to judge this snake by its size. They're quite petite when compared to other venomous snakes. Adults can be anywhere from 30 to 90 centimeters long, depending on the species. That's practically nothing when you look at the king cobra and its average length of nearly 4 meters. The reason they're so deadly is due to their aggressive nature. They will strike quickly and often when threatened. Their small size allows them to hide under rocks, leaves, or branches, making it easy to startle them when walking by. Saw-scaled vipers are estimated to bite approximately 50,000 people every year, one of the most significant totals on the planet. And in Africa, they're the cause of the highest number of deaths. The high frequency of encounters is due in large part to them being found in highly populated areas. So please watch your step, people. Adding to their lethal repertoire, they release more venom than the average deadly snake. The venom will stop your blood's ability to clot, which can lead to disastrous bleeding. And if you're lucky enough to avoid, well, death, a bite can still come with a hefty cost to your body. If not treated properly and promptly, it will destroy tissues and can lead to losing a finger, toe, or entire limbs. Antivenom will save your life, but not your extremities. The damage will already be done. Remember, it's not the size that matters, it's the motion of the ocean. Or in this case, the brutally aggressive, venomous nature. You may be fortunate enough to hear their strange, distinctive warning sounds before they lunge in your direction. When they feel threatened, they curl up in an S shape and rub their scales together, creating the sound of a tiny saw, hence the name, obvi. The technical term for this is stridulation. Saw-scaled vipers produce these sounds due to one difference from other serpents. Most snake scales point backward, but theirs are serrated and are situated upward, similar to if you run your finger across a comb. So besides keeping your eyes peeled, keep your ears to the ground too. Depending on the species, saw-scaled vipers can be egg-laying or live-bearing. The egg layers can be found in northern Africa, while live-bearing species are spread across the Middle East and southern Asia. Aw, look how cute this little guy is. Who would guess it'll grow up to be a ruthless killing machine? Not me, no. Okay, snake danger can also come from above. Check out our episode on the deadly boomslang that stalks its prey from trees. Making threatening sounds while being highly aggressive is what saw-scaled vipers do, and that's what makes them crazy creatures. No, this snail isn't ready to rave. It couldn't be further from the truth. It has been turned into a zombie.